ladies and gentlemen, so today for lesson 3, we're actually going to be, it's a very big vocabulary lesson. So, and these are properties, some of which you're going to know from last year and previous years. Some are going to be new that we might not use all that often, but then when you take geometry, we're kind of prepping for that when you take geometry next year. And they're really, I can show you a couple of tricks to try to remember some of these, but most of it is you have to sit down and memorize them. Hopefully that works for you. But we're going to be working with equivalent expressions, and equivalent expressions are two expressions that represent the same number. So kind of think a little bit about math facts, right? If I say 3 plus 4, that's the exact, it's an equivalent expression to 2 plus 5 because they both equal 7. All right, so let's take a look at these. First one, we have our properties of equality. Reflexive property. In words, it means that any quantity equals itself. Right? In looking at examples, so A equals A, or, for example, 5 equals 5. And the idea is when we start simplifying things, or when we start checking our solutions to our equations, we're really using the reflexive property. Do I get the same answer on both sides? All right, symmetric property. If one quantity equals the first, then you, so if one quantity equals the first, you can switch it. Meaning, let me show you in words, saying A equals B is the same as B equals A. Right? So that's letting us kind of switch, and we've done that before when we, some of you like to rewrite your equations, but saying 8 equals 2 plus 6 is the same as saying 2 plus 6 equals 8. So that's your symmetric property, that you can switch them around on the equal sign. All right, transitive properties is saying that if two quantities equal the same, they equal each other. So if two quantities equal the same, they equal each other. For example, if A equals B and C equals B, then A has to equal C. All right, substitution property, this one we're going to be using a lot. A substitution property, is a quantity may be substituted for its equal. Sorry about that. No apostrophe. Or it's equal. So, and we do this every time we do order of operations, and we take one thing out and we put the answer in. So, for example, if n equals 11, then 4n is going to be 4 times 11. I can take n out and put the 11 in. That's what that's saying. All right, moving on. Addition properties, additive identity. So the additive identity is that you can add 0 to any number. And we did this one last year. So for example, a plus 0 equals a, 5 plus 0 equals 5. Additive inverse, a number and its opposite. So a plus negative a equals 0, 5 plus negative 5 equals 0. So again, we did those last year. Those are review. Multiplication properties are also review. Multiplicative identity is that you can multiply any number by 1. So we know a times 1 equals a, 5 times 1 equals 5. Multiplicative property of 0, if you multiply by 0, you get 0. So a times 0 equals 0, 5 times 0 equals 0. Again, review from last year. Multiplicative inverse. Sorry, that was the fan crashing in the background, just so you know. Multiply by the reciprocal and you get 1. So a over b times b over a equals 1. 1/6 times 6 equals 1. Review from last year. The last three are also review from last year. Commutative property says that I can change the order. Right? And we know the C and the O go together with the C and the O in the commutative property. So for example, A plus B is the same as saying B plus A. It works for multiplication and addition. Multiplication and addition. In numbers, I'll show you a multiplying example. So 6 times 5 is the same as 5 times 6. Right? It lets you change the order of what you're doing. Associative property means that you can change the grouping. So if I have A plus B plus C, A and B are in parentheses, that's the same as saying where B and C are in parentheses. Distributive property means that I can share, and we're going to spend more time on this a little bit later, share multiplication over addition. So if I have, for example, 3 times A plus B, that's the same as 3A plus 3B. And again, we used distributive property a lot last year when we solved equations, so that shouldn't be anything new, hopefully. Oh, good, thank goodness, because that's a lot of vocabulary. Biggest ones up here in these is the substitution property. Yes, you really should know those definitions, but the substitution property is going to be the one that we use most often. And then the rest of them are review from last year. All right? It's memorization. Memorize the words. Memorize the examples. Understand what they're telling you. Any questions? As always,